Are we ready to start the meeting?
All right, Kieran, we're just waiting on Maura to join the meeting.
Okay.
Eamon, I'm on the meeting. I'm on the
Apologies,
meeting for
Maura.
5 minutes.
Maura, do you want to read the notice, please? Thanks.
Good afternoon, members. You're hereby summoned to the reconvene planning committee on the 2nd of December. Alderman Alan Breslin. See Alan on the call.
Here.
Thanks, Alan. Alderman Derek Hussey.
Right, Maura, thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Can't see him. I'll hold that and come back again. Alderman Hilary McClintock.
Here, Maura.
Thanks, Hilary. Councillor Jason Barr. Councillor Jason Barr. No. I'll come back. Councillor John Boyle. Councillor John Boyle. I see John's on the call. Maybe he just can't get on. I'll come back to John. Councillor Angela Dobbins. Councillor Angela Dobbins. No. I'll come back again. Councillor Paul Gallagher. No. Councillor Paul Gallagher. No. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
And sure.
Thanks, Christopher. Councillor Dan Kelly.
Sure, Maura.
Thanks, Dan. Councillor Patricia Logue.
Sure, Maura.
Thanks, Patricia. Councillor Kieran Maguire.
Ciao, Maura.
Thanks, Kieran. Councillor Philip McKinney.
Apologies. I have to deputise for him today.
All right, Kieran. Thank you. Councillor Sean Mooney.
Here, Maura.
Thank you. I'll just go back again because I think a few more people jumped on the call there. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
And yet he is literally seconds away.
Okay. Councillor Jason Barr. No. Let's see. Councillor John Boyle. Councillor Boyle.
Maura, John was on there, but
Aye.
he may have gone off again, but he may be trying to get back in again, so he may be having
Okay.
difficulties. Thank you.
Councillor Angela Dobbins. No. People are having difficulty getting on. And Councillor Paul Gallagher. No. And with apologies from Councillor McKinney.
Maura, John Boyle here.
Thank you, John.
Maura,
Got you.
I had trouble unmuting and I couldn't even type in the chat box, so I logged out and logged back in. So hopefully things are okay now.
Thank you, Chair. That's 8 members of the committee here. Just checking the attendance list. And Keith, I've just seen him. He's just joined. Apologies for being late, so I'll add Keith on. That's 9. So we've got quorum, Chair. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Maura.
Pass
Thank you,
on over
Maura.
to yourself.
The broadcasting statement for remote meetings. What was read yesterday?
Chair, that was read yesterday, and given that this is a continuing meeting from that, I'm content enough that we don't need to reiterate that.
Okay. Declaration of members on TRES. I want to follow on through from number 9, which is someone will have to step in at that stage. So no chairperson's business. So if we want to move right in, is the order still 10, 11 and 9, Maura?
Chair, that's correct, yes, still the same. Thank you.
Okay, so do we want to just jump right into number 10 then? That's okay?
Yep, thank you, Chair. I'll take that one. It's Suzanne here.
Chair John Boyle here. Just briefly, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Chair, there was late information that came through this morning in relation to the Lawrence Hill application. Be interested in the senior officer's view on that.
Yes, Chair, we did receive further information and we sent it to drawing officers as a late item, and Andre will deal with that when we get to that application, but we don't need to defer the application. It's information that officers had received before. It's not new information, and we can deal with it at the time. So we're content we can proceed today.
That's okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Maura. No, I wasn't aware it wasn't new information. Okay, thank you.
All right,
Chair, just on a procedural issue, officers have received this. The determining body is this committee. I haven't received any additional information. I don't know if any others have. Thank you, Chair.
I think it came through the email this morning there, but
yes, Chair, we did. We sent it through. I understand it was sent through to members what we received. Thank you.
Given that the date of the meeting was yesterday, is it still acceptable?
it's
Chair, through you,
Philip, do you want to-
because this isn't new information, but rather, whilst it's been sent through and is late, but isn't actually new information in terms of the information that would have been available prior to the meeting starting. There's no issue in relation to it.
Thank you, Chair.
thank you. I'll give people a chance to, at the start of item 11, to read up on that. Okay, we want to move right on to number 10 then. Suzanne?
Yep, thanks, Chair. I'll just share the presentation. Can everybody see that okay?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so members, this is item 10. It's LA11 2021 0496F, and it's the proposed one-story farm dwelling on a farm, including alterations to an existing access along Lisnara Road, Plumbridge, 110 metres northeast of 315 Lisnara Road, Plumbridge, and the recommendation is to refuse. So members, this first slide just shows you the location maps submitted with the application. The site's outlined in red here. This is the Lisnara Road, and the farm grouping and the active business is located and addressed down here, 318 Lisnara Road. These are existing buildings on the farm. These are just a couple of photos from the application site, just taken up from the access, just to show you the topography of the site and some of the screening around some of the boundaries. Some low stone, old stone walls there as well. So in terms of the policy context, the site is within the AONB and it's within the proximity of an archaeological site and monument to the northeast. You'll see there the policy context that we've assessed the application against, detailed further in your reports. The consultees have all returned satisfactory responses, and you'll be aware, members, that there has been one letter of support with this application. So as it's a proposed dwelling on a farm, the main policy consideration that we would be looking at this under is obviously in PPS 21. So from the information to date, we've been able to assess that the farm business is active and established. There have been no dwellings or development opportunities sold off. However, there is an issue which we have encountered with the visual linkage and the clustering test, which we feel that the proposal doesn't meet. So just looking at that in a bit more detail, you can see here the location of the site, and then we have the established buildings on the farm here, just over 190 metres further southeast. We have another farm building down there. To give you an idea of the farm holding, that's just the farm maps, just outlining the extent of the holding. And we've just outlined there the existing buildings, and then the proximity to the site. So when looking at CTY 10, you know, this criteria C does say, look, exceptionally consideration may be given to an alternative site elsewhere on the farm, provided there are no other sites available at another group of buildings, or whether either demonstrable health and safety reasons or verifiable plans to expand. So the only group of buildings the applicant has identified to us are those at 318 Lisnara Road, which are here. And you know, the officers have considered that there are possible alternatives. We've outlined here the first site. Now the applicant felt that that site was an unacceptable option because they had concerns with the road, speed of the road and visibility displays. Roads have confirmed that displays of 2.4 by 70 could be provided, but that would obviously require a separate application to further that. Again, this site here below, number 2, would also visually link cluster with existing buildings. However, the applicant has advised that the existing dwelling here is looking and would be obstructing the view, and it would be inappropriate and unacceptable in their views. So there's other land out here within the holding as well. So I mean, officers would be happy to content to look at any other sites that the applicant might want to put forward on that basis. So in terms of integration, the site itself does actually integrate. It's very well screened, travel along this narrow road. There's limited views of it. So we feel it does comply with CTY 13 and 14. And it's also within the AONB. And because of the scheme that the agent is proposing, which is quite a modest, low dwelling, I think it's not just about 4.6 metres high. You can see there that the visual impact will be quite minimal. So here are just some of the concepts and the elevational drawings that were submitted with the application. And we have no issue in terms of the ability for that specific site to integrate, other than the fact it doesn't meet criteria C of CTY 10, that it's not sited or clustered with an established group of buildings on the farm. Other policy considerations: the roads issues, no issues. Historic monuments are content. The archaeological monuments not scheduled, no issues of flooding, and again PPS 2 issues. Natural Environment Division are wanting to condition restriction of external lighting. It's something that we would probably need to consider the necessity of, really. And again, we have, in terms of the letter of support, it highlights the problems with the 2 alternative sites, and that, you know, the integration of the site and the sensitive design is acceptable in the AONB. So on balance then, members, we have refused it for those 2 reasons: principal CTY 1 and also not visually linked or cited to cluster. So happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. Do we have a speaker?
Yes.
Kieran Shields, if you want to go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Thanks for allowing me to speak on behalf of this application. The site is located on a large sheep farm which stretches across both sides of the Lisnara Road. The applicant is the only son who helps out considerably on the day-to-day activities of the farm. The farm meets the requirements and legislation for a new dwelling, as it is an active farm and there's been no other dwellings or applications submitted. We have addressed all consultee issues and concerns through the application process, including NI roads and an ecology report as requested by the NIEA. We walk the site or the farm with our clients and applicant to review the potential options. in the middle of last year. The most obvious alternative site, as outlined by the case officer and is noted as 07726. Unfortunately, we feel that this site is located on the dangerous inside bend of the road, which the applicant felt would be unsafe to create an access. And the other issue that is that they don't have full control of the hedgerow and the trees to establish the full length of the sightline required towards the Dunnamana part of Lisnara Road. The other issue we felt is that if we were to create these sightlines, there would be significant tree and hedgerows that it would need to be removed, and thus increasing the speed again, which we felt would not be safe. As outlined by the case officer, there was an alternative site proposed as part of the application process on their behalf, which was the field in front of the existing farm dwelling. But we felt this would be inappropriate as it would have an adverse negative impact on the setting of the existing farm dwelling. So, however, the site that we had selected has been selected as it minimises the impact on the immediate area and context. Location, siting and design forms the integral part of the rural strategy, as outlined in the Serban area plan. We feel that this site is the most suitable site on the farm, and I have proposed an appropriate and respectful design for a dwelling in the area of outstanding natural beauty. The proposed site for the new dwelling on the farm has been selected to best utilise an existing farm access and lane. The topography of the lands rise along the Lisnara Road, concealing the site, where there is also significant existing trees and vegetation that screens the site, all to be maintained. We have maintained the natural dike stone hedgerows of the existing field boundaries that surround the site. The design utilises and respects the current immediate natural boundaries, which will help integrate the new dwelling. We are proposing to minimise tree loss at the site. Only 2 trees are being removed to allow for the vehicular access. We have sensitively located the footprint so that it sits into the lowest level of the site and designed the front facade of the building to continue the current historic farm laneway, effectively creating a modern continuation of the stone-lined lane which rises up to the site. The house design has been designed using the vernacular scale and style used in the local area and rural countryside, and fitting of a new dwelling in the area of outstanding natural beauty. The design of the house ensures it is located to maximise the best orientation, i.e. locating large south-facing glazing to capture solar gains. The 2 blocks are positioned in such a way to reduce the impact of prevailing winds. The architecture has been developed from the natural topography of the hills, mountains of the Glenelly Valley. The 3 roof pitches are all designed to have subtle differences in degrees and are shallow in nature to reflect the local agricultural architecture. The proposed ridge heights are significantly lower than a traditional bungalow-style house, given the narrow vernacular plan widths used as part of the design. 4.7 metres will be the maximum height ridge. There will be concealed views, partial views, mostly in the wintertime along the Lisnara Road, but the significant trees and vegetation, along with the low pitch of the roof, will ensure that the new dwelling will integrate successfully into the surrounding context. Coming from Dunnamana, the building will be completely hidden as you drive towards Plumbridge. In terms of materials, we are proposing to use sandblasted concrete as it is robust and suitable for the tough conditions of the site. Timber cladding is proposed to soften and blend into the natural colours of the surrounding bogland. And a profiled metal roof is to be used to match agricultural buildings throughout the rural landscape. All materials that are outlined as part of the Buildings and Traditional Design Guide. Thus, this is why we believe that the selected and the correct site and is the most appropriate site, and how we've designed a respectful and sensitive modern home for our applicant. Thank you.
Thank you, Kieran. Is there any questions for the agent? Keith?
Chair. Kieran, I've looked at this application here, and as you state, it is from my understanding, you're looking at the farm maps that have been included there. It's a large, as I say, it's that ground there between the Plum Bridge and Dunnamana. It's coming onto mountainous kind of ground there, more a large sheep farm there, and technically, I suppose there's maybe not a need for a massive number of farm buildings. You know, I know there are a number of farm buildings clustered in there. So as I say, it's going to be difficult to link with farm buildings anyway, because, you know, a lot of those men, particularly that agricultural sector there, it's not as if it's a dairy farm where, you know, there's the housing, cattle housing, cubicle housing, and this, that, and the other for a lot of livestock there. A lot of the sheep farmers there are very few buildings. I'm just touching on that. Would be that your view on it then? And touching as well, as you have said, that section of Lisnara Road, and particularly where you've placed the site, there's substantial hedgerows on both sides there of that road there, and it's you know, even if the dwelling house was on one side of the road and the shades were exactly directly opposite it, it's due to the substantial hedgerows. You wouldn't, you know, it would be very difficult to kind of link. And I'm just saying what your thoughts are on that. And as I say, from knowing the road there coming from the Dunnamana side and knowing where you seem to have the site located, it does appear that it would be, you know, it is well hidden, as you state. So it's just trying to factor in there that you're content enough in that regard that the road as well has mature hedging on both sides of that road there, and it is difficult to link in because of the, you know, my argument is there that my case here is that, and I'm just querying if you feel the same, that because of the nature of the farming too, there's not going to be a massive number of farm buildings on that farm whenever it's a sheep farm, and for there to be a visual link with. So I'm just wondering your thoughts on that, or if you have an opinion. Thank you, Kieran.
Yeah, and we looked at that, you know, as part of our site visit and first meeting with the applicant, and we felt that any new building on the right hand side, I suppose, on where the farm buildings are located, will be much more visually. You will see a new building put there, and the backdrop is quite, you know, just, you know, large areas of bogland. So in terms of trying to visually link, it may potentially link with the buildings, but it won't really link with the outstanding, you know, or the natural topography of the land in that area if we could position the house on the right hand side of the road. And that's where we felt that the arguments could be made to position the house on the site on the left hand side of the road, which is it's effectively screened from the Lisnara Road.
Thank you, Kieran. Is there any other questions for the agent? We'll move on to questions to the officer then. Derek, agent or officer?
Is that to me, Kieran?
Aye, for the agent or for the officer?
Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. Derek, Suzanne's. Derek?
Thank you, Chair. Just listening to the whole presentation and listening to the officer's presentation, officers don't really, from what I am reading, have a difficulty with the citing and all of the normal issues that we might deal with on an application. So am I right in thinking that the only concerns on this that planning has is with regard to policy rather than anything else? I mean, I've heard the officer saying, you know, that everything integrates and everything else. So would I be correct in thinking that?
Through you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Hussey. The officer, I mean, our concern is, I mean, we're required to look at this under CTY 10, okay, which requires, you you know, planning permission will be granted for a dwelling house on a farm where all of the following criteria can be met. The one that it doesn't meet is that the new building is visually linked or sited to cluster with an established group of buildings on the farm. Okay, so the site itself, we've said that it integrates. Yes, that's very clear in the report. We've no issue with the design, but it's a dwelling on a farm being proposed, and it's not visually linked or sited to cluster with the farm.
Thanks, Suzanne. Thank you. That clarifies everything for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Any other questions for the officer? Okay, could we have a proposer?
Hello?
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, Chair, sorry, I see Derek's got a proposal. I was going to make a proposal.
I'll defer to Dan.
Thanks, Derek. Chair, just in terms of framing, I'm going to propose that we don't accept the officer recommendation. And just in terms of framing that, because I know there have been issues previously and currently in relation to the proposals we're making, I do want to note that there are no statutory objections to the proposal. And this is, it comes down to just really a singular point on policy. And I think it's obvious from the maps and the report and from the officer and from the agent that this is a large working farm, which, as we've recognized in other situations, asking people to develop a residential house in a farmyard is fraught with risk and danger. So I accept the case on principle for an alternative site on the farm. And this is obviously accepted by Plan 2 when they have offered alternative sites on the farm. But I do question whether either of the two sites are visually linked to the farmyard buildings, given the degree of screening that exists around both sites. I accept that they are more proximate to the farmyard buildings, but I don't accept that they are visually linked in the strict sense. I also accept that there are road safety issues with both sites in terms of the sight lines. And I also, which hasn't been sort of reflected in the conversation around both alternative sites, is that either or site creates a much more dense concentration of development when you take the other developments on either side of the road, you know, north, south, east, and west of them. They create a much denser spatial development in and around that area than what the applicant is proposing. So my take on the alternative site is that, as it's noted in the report, the only, or one of the very few short range views is from the direction of the farmyard buildings. So I think it is a workable solution. And I do note from the policy on CTY 10 in terms of 5.41, it does say planning permission can be granted for a new dwelling, even though the degree of visual linkage between the two is either very limited or virtually non-existent due to the amount of screening vegetation. So I don't know that there's a lot to be gained in terms of turning down this application in favour of what's proposed in the alternative 2 sites that have been offered by planning. There's no planning history on the site, as the report has said. So I accept the bona fides of the applicant that this is not some sort of commercial venture. There's just a couple of long-range views. I do question whether you can actually see it from the Ahiarn Road, as it's noted in the report. I think you would have to have exceptional eyesight to be able to see this development from the Ahiarn Road. But I think, you know, in terms of the Strabane area plan, I think when you look at the AONB policy, which isn't restrictive in terms of housing. And I think it's worth just noting for the record in terms of the proposal, Chair, it does say in a quote, this relatively remote part of the district suffers from a number of socioeconomic problems associated with rural depopulation, which an unduly restrictive policy would serve to exacerbate. The area continues to experience both population decline and a decrease in its housing stock. And I think anyone travelling along the Lisnara Road would note the number of derelict houses that exist there. I think in terms of the rural remainder part of the Strabane area plan, I think it meets, 120.3, 123.2.2, 123.2.1 of the area plan, and I also think it meets 125.1, 125.3, 0.4.5, and 0.6. The alternative site, or sorry, the proposed site has an existing access onto the Slara Road, which is considered to be safe. So for all of those reasons, Chair, I'm proposing that we don't accept the officer recommendation to refuse, and that we approve this application. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kelly, and let's see, it has been seconded there by Alderman Hussey.
Yep, indeed.
Could I ask, is it Maura to take the vote?
Sorry, Kieran, I take
Eamon,
vote. That's
Eamon.
okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Eamon.
No problem. Thank you. Alderman Breeslin.
For.
Thank you. Alderman Hussey.
For.
Thank you. Alderman Kerrigan.
For, Eamon.
Thank you. Alderman McClintock.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Barr.
Eamon wasn't here from the start of the presentation, so I'll abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Boyle.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Dobbins. Councillor Paul Gallagher. Councillor Jackson.
For, Eamon.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Logue.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Maguire.
For, Eamon.
Thank you. Councillor Mooney.
For, Eamon.
Thank you. Just go back. Councillor Dobbins. Chair, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, Eamon, thank you. We move on to item 11. Is that Sarah's name come up there?
That's Andre here, Chair.
Andre, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah. Item 11, members, is LA 11 2019-0142F.
Sorry, Andre. Chair, you just have to take a few moments with this application for members with the information that was submitted. Apologies.
Oh, my apologies. We'll take 5 minutes then. Okay. Apologies, everyone.
Chair, just Alderman Kerrigan there, just confirming there, Maura, was that email sent out this morning in regards to the items again, or is it just something we've already had there for? I know Alderman Hussey, I think, was touching it, but I don't have any emails this morning, to be fair.
I'm in the same boat.
Andre, I wonder, could you check in regards to that? Who was sent that?
It was, yeah, it was Sarah Jane that would have sent the email, but I'll just check with her now and just make sure that it was sent to all members. I'll come back and clarify.
I received it anyway. Patricia here.
I'll get a list of members that it was sent to, okay? I'll be back in just a second.
Chair, if it assists, I have the email in front of me here, and I can see that it has been sent at 11:47 a.m. To the members of the Planning Committee, and included in that is Alderman Hussey and Alderman Kerrigan are both included in that list.
Chair, sorry for coming on. I do. To be fair, Alderman McClintock has just forwarded to me, and that I've got her email, but that's the first email I've got from Council today. But I do see on the list, as she's forwarded to me, I see my name and Alderman Hussey. But as I say, I've had no emails from Council this morning until Hillary has sent it to me. So as I say, I do see that it has been sent, but wherever it went, it hasn't got the length of Castleberg. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I'll forward it on to Alderman Hussey, council email address now. Is there any
I
other
appreciate
member
that,
that doesn't have it?
Phil. Thank you.
Has everyone else got it?
Chair, John here. I have an email of sorts, but I'm not sure if it's what I'm supposed to have. If somebody could explain to me, it's kind of odd. It's coming to a kind of a Dropbox thing, you know. I wouldn't say I'm IT illiterate, but I want to make sure I've got what I'm supposed to be getting. Can somebody describe it for me?
Yeah, so Chair, the email sent at 11:47 has attached to it. It just simply says, please see below email and attached late item for Planning Committee today, Thursday, 2nd December at 2 p.m. and then references the Lawrence Hill reference. There's an email attached to that, which whenever you click into it has a further attachment, which is a PDF document.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I have that either, Chair. I'm going to have a quick deeper dig into this one.
That's fine. Councillor Boyle, I'll send it on to you here now as well.
Phillips, thank you.
We'll reconvene at 2:45 then.
That's grand, Chair. Thank you.
Chair, before you go,
Yeah.
there's reference to design drawings in an attachment on that email. I wonder, could they be circulated separately? I know I received the email from this morning, but the reference to the design drawings has thrown me a little bit. I've gone into the MIME attachment and I'm just not seeing them.
I just double clicked on them and they came up, you know, so.
Okay, I'll have a footer here.
Can I just confirm that as what I did just now, Chair? Failing that worked, I double click on it.
Okay, we're ready to start.
I'm content, Chair, if you want me to go ahead.
Is there anyone not ready?
Go, Chair.
Go as well, Chair.
Go, Chair.
Okay, Andre, do you want to go ahead then?
Yep. Good afternoon, members. Item 11 is LA 11 2019-0142F, and the proposal is for 12 number apartments over 4 stories, 3 number apartments per floor, including ancillary boundary wall treatment to include external bin store. And the site is adjacent to 32 Lawrence Hill in Derry, and the recommendation is to refuse. Members, this slide shows the location of the application site outlined in red. The site is located at the top of Lawrence Hill and adjacent to number 32 Lawrence Hill, and it's located within Derry City. The application site is currently a vacant site, and the proposed development incorporates changes to part of the internal arrangements of number 32 Lawrence Hill, which is the adjoining building in the photograph. So this is a further photograph of the site, and members will note the existing development to the rear of the site, which consists of apartments. There is an existing laneway between the application site and number 30 Lawrence Hill, just seen in this photograph. And this photograph is taken from the laneway at number 30, looking towards the gable of number 32. Members will note there are windows for the existing accommodation at number 32 on this elevation, and also windows associated with number 5 Northland Road. So this is the proposed block plan, and the built form proposed is over the majority of the site, except for a small area between number 32 and the rear return of number 5 Northland Road. The hatched area shows part of the existing adjacent building, which will be incorporated into the proposed apartments in this proposed development. And this is the proposed front elevation as seen from Lawrence Hill. The design is similar to the adjacent building at number 32. So members, this slide shows the proposed floor plans of the apartments. There are 12 apartments in total over 3 floors. Members will note that the windows proposed for apartments 2, 5, 8 and 11 look into a blank wall, and windows of the adjacent buildings. These are the only windows proposed for these particular apartments. This slide shows the proposed side and rear elevations. The elevation on the gable of the building is adjacent to the existing laneway and faces a blank gable of number 30 Lawrence Hill. The proposed rear elevation has no windows. So during the processing of the application, a total of 7 objections were received from residents of Clarence Avenue, and the following issues were raised in the objections. So in relation to parking, accessing and servicing, the objectors raised existing parking problems in Lawrence Hill. Streets in the locality are already at full capacity. There's no regards for residents in Lawrence Hill. Residents already suffer from excessive vehicular traffic problems, and this would exacerbate the situation. The proposal is contrary to PPS 3. No provision has been made for parking, turning, loading and unloading of vehicles which will be attracted to the site. Road safety concerns, interfering with the free flow of traffic and creating unsafe and hazardous traffic conditions for existing residents and proposed tenants. PSNI have brought in temporary residence parking on Lawrence Hill due to long-standing issues with parking in the area. And continuing the objections with regards to issues in building design and other issues, the proposed development is excessive in terms of scale and density, which compromises the residential amenity of residents in Lawrence Hill. There's a lack of amenity for proposed occupants. The application is contrary to PPS 7, as the proposed development would erode the amenity enjoyed by existing residents. The agent has not established need when there are vacant properties and flats in the surrounding area, and there are too many flat conversions in the area already. So with regards to consultation responses, DFI Roads have advised that the current proposal offers only on-street parking, and a development for 12 apartments would typically require 16 number car parking spaces. DFI Roads have advised that the parking is a planning issue and provided a refusal reason in the event of a recommendation to refuse. So HED, Historic Monuments, Environmental Health Service, Locks Agency, NI Water, NIA Land, Soil and Air, and NIA Natural Environment Division all had no objection. DFI Rivers have no concerns with regards to policies FLD 1, 2, 4 and 5. However, they did advise that with regards to FLD 3 that the submitted drainage assessment fails to meet the requirements of the policy, and officers did request a revised drainage assessment to address DFI Rivers' concerns in November 2019, January and December 2020, April, June, July and October 2021. So the relevant planning policies, members, is the RDS, the Dairy Area Plan, the SPPS and Planning Policy Statements 3, 6, 7, 15 and Creating Places, which is achieving quality in residential environments. So members will be aware of the late item which was received earlier today. It refers to previous email correspondence and drawing, with just one drawing submitted informally to officers on the 1st of July 2021, following discussions with the agent regarding the unacceptability of the proposed development. The amended plan shows parking at ground floor level, accessed off an existing laneway, which is outside the red line of the application site, and the number of apartments seems to be reduced from 12 to 9. So officers responded in detail to the agent on the 7th of July, advising that if he wished to formally amend the application, he would need to submit the relevant P1 form altering the description, a revised P2 form detailing ownership or serving notice, if that was appropriate, full copies of amended plans so that officers could consider the proposed amendments in detail, and on receipt of all that information, the application would be required to be re-advertised, re-neighbour notified, objectors notified obviously of the amendments, and further consultation would also need to be carried out with statutory consultees, most importantly DFI Roads, given the change to the access and the parking internally now in the proposal. So the agent advised on the 28th of September that he was reviewing the comments from officers and would need until the end of October to submit a revised scheme. The agent was further contacted by the case officer and advised on the 21st of October that he would need a further week to submit. But however, no formal submission has been received to date, and therefore officers have considered the application and brought the recommendation to members based on the original proposal as submitted by the agent in 2019 under this current application. Members, just the attachment, just in case anybody wasn't able to open it, hopefully you have, but this is just the plan of the informal drawing that was submitted to officers back in July, and it shows, as you can see, just the parking now coming off the existing laneway adjacent to number 30. So it takes out the accommodation on that floor, and it still proposes the apartments above that. There is a slight amendment to the rear apartment shaded in blue there, but you still have those windows and a small light well at the back. But as I said, this was not formally submitted with all the amended P1 and P2 forms, and no consultations or neighbour notification, or the objectors that haven't been consulted on this. So the decision today, if members make a decision on this, will be based on the plans as previously detailed. So in conclusion, officers consider that the proposed development of 12 apartments is contrary to the area plan, PPS 3, PPS 7, PPS 7 addendum, and PPS 15, as no revised drainage assessment has been submitted to date. All material considerations have been taken into account, including representations and consultation responses received. It is therefore recommended that Planning Committee refused planning permission for the proposed development for the 12 reasons as shown below and as set out in detail in the planning report. So members, I'll not, unless you want me to, I'll not read those through in detail. I can leave them on the screen here, we can go through them, but they are detailed in the planning report also. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. I think we have one speaker, is there?
Yes, David McKinley.
Okay, David, go ahead.
Reading through listening to Andre's report, the timeline did seem excessive. However, I had difficulties getting in contact with the applicant. He works abroad occasionally and at times is uncontactable. However, I'll continue on with the presentation as it currently stands. We are working on a sort of a redesign, and that's not just available yet, but it is coming. I've been working with it on them. Points 1, 2, and 4 on the refusal are related to roads parking. We have submitted a parking survey, which was carried out to the standards laid down by road service. We identified spaces ample to service this development. However, during the course of the application, I believe road service asked for curtilage parking. We have indicated that on the drawing that you've sort of looked at there now. I believe this has been put in front of you today. No other development on Lawrence Hill has been asked for curtilage parking. Most recently and recently approved was an HMSO directly opposite our site. The applicant currently owns and runs successfully 14 apartments throughout this area, Northland Road and another street further on over. And always there's only one car. There's only one car in 14 apartments. We have indicated that in part of our consultations backwards and forwards to planning that there's a tenants agreement and that the landlord would contribute to public transport, i.e. to negate the use of cars on the road. That's with planning service. Just to point out, with regard to this application, the majority of Lawrence Hill is not private residence. There would appear to be quite a few HMSOs and apartments further on down the street. Points 3 and 5 is a design-led question. The elevations and floor plans, if we could bring that back up again, Andre, please. The newer development. I'm at odds here. I completely disagree. The design and massing has not been satisfied. We're on a very steep slope here. So the topography is quite unusual. You've got a series of 28 and 30 as a series of step terrace dwellings right down to the very bottom of the street. 32 is a lovely, I think almost Victorian building. We have complemented that with what we have designed and we've stepped it down, I think in accordance with that. I happen to think that elevation looks extremely well. It's in keeping with the area. If you look across the street, number 17A, I think it is, absolutely awful compared to what we have in front of you. Just to point out, actually, there was a previous approval on this site of a similar massing and a similar design with the bay 1 to spoke square and I believe octagonal. That approval has commenced with foundations in prior to the planning running out. So strictly speaking, the elevational change should not matter here. The materials and detailing are similar and completely in keeping with 32 and 30, i.e. brick and render. Point 6, the existing buildings that existed prior to removal was a 2-story building. The gable of number 30 at Lawrence Hill is more or less the depth of our site. There's no windows in that. There's 2 windows to the further back into their development. In fact, actually number 30 is completely developed from front to back. There's no apparent amenity space available. So that as I'm quite happy to say there's no loss of light to these premises as the windows is not within the depth of the site, and I don't believe there's been an objection from number 30. Point 7, well, that was the the sort of the email in relation to the uncurtilage parking. We have increased the layout. Sorry, we've increased the light well at the back. That's the old layout, but the newer one was the email that was this morning that caused a little bit of confusion. The only reason I asked for that this morning, by the way, was that it wasn't uploaded, that you wouldn't have seen it other than we'd actually asked for it to be put up. So I believe there's protection visually that nobody's overlooking. We're looking at number 5, I think it was. It's the property behind, has no development back beyond the depth of 32. There's apartments certainly on 2 more gardens on over, which would be 4 and 3, probably 3, and it looks directly across at it, but there's enough separation distance for that. Number 8, that's the flood risk assessment. We have a PD has come back, and they said obviously there's no sewer connection, even though we're currently connected. The flood risk assessment I carried out was a simple one in that the whole site is hard. There's no soft areas to soak up water. So strictly speaking, we're not loading the system any further than what's currently there. That wasn't accepted. I currently have an engineer working on that. We have a 154 application made a couple of months ago.
Excuse me, Mr. McKinley.
Yes.
That's your 5 minutes up there now.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, David, have you much more? How long?
No, basically, well, 10, 12, basically just to conclude, I think there was mentioned the B1 and B3, which is part of your, look, we're in a flat zone, it's designated for that. We're outside the conservation area just, so we could obviously build nearly anything you wanted to. We took a notion of building exactly a sort of replica of what was number 32, which isn't unlike the previous approval in massing and size. The windows that was mentioned from 32 is actually kitchen windows, so it's not bedrooms as such. No, that's it. I'm quite happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
David.
you, Chair.
Is there any questions to the agent?
Chair, if you allow me in there, it's Keith here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chair, I'm just wondering there. I know where David's saying there, and I know it's up for refusal at present. I'm just wondering, is it the occasion here, David, that you really need a bit more time on this one, or is that something, I know their planning officers had stated they were waiting on additional information coming in, and again that you stated that you had difficulty actually contacting the client because of them working abroad. So I'm just wondering, is this something that if we potentially, I'm asking your opinion, if we potentially deferred this application and to allow you a bit more time, would it be practical, or if it was to go that way, how much time do you feel that you would require? Or maybe it's something we should try to push on now. I'm just trying to get your feeling of it. Thank you, David. Thank you, Chair.
The initial comments come back from planning service. I passed them on to the client. He disappeared. He works abroad. He works in financial end. Couldn't get him, and I sort of played about a wee bit. I spoke to James on and off on the phone. We had kept in touch. He's landed back. He's sort of back in the area, whatever you want to call it. He's back in the city now again this last month or more. So we've been working on it. I apologise. I did promise that I would have stuff in, and I've told James that since October. We are working on a scheme, and I'm hoping to have him up next week. I didn't even realise this was up for refusal until James had mentioned it to me. So yes, if I could have, I think 2 months. I'll tell you why. The flood risk assessment is 2 months into a 154 application. It takes about 3 to 6 months usually. I'm not far away from a decision on them. If that doesn't work, I'm sort of screwed. So that's quite an easy answer. But yes, if I had time to get that brought back, I think probably a couple of months would finish it out. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Sorry, Councillor Jackson, then Councillor McClintock.
Thanks, Chair. And I suppose I don't want to reference the design documents that were sent on, if that's going to be subject to a further application. But David, see in your presentation, you referenced a previous permission on the site.
Yes, yes.
And I know from the reports that we've received, the previous permission is 2008 permission that was permitted in 2011.
Yeah.
Around the change of use. Is that because it wasn't a replacement dwelling, it was a
No.
change of use application?
Change of use and extension to the building, that's right, yes. That has been started through a building control application, and the officers have been out and checked that. It was really just to secure the planning. I didn't do the actual planning itself. It was done prior, but I implemented the building control application for that, yes.
Okay, no, thank you.
So as far as I'm aware, that's secure and sort of in place, yeah.
Right, no, thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman McClintock.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, David, for coming along today to share with us. I can sense your frustration. I've not been able to get this brought to a satisfactory conclusion, I suppose. Just one simple question. Just the officer's report mentioned that there were a number, I think it might have been 3 of the apartments that are looking out onto a gable wall of the other properties. Now, I know you referred in your presentation to there is no overlooking, but I suppose this is maybe nearly the opposite way. They can't see out to overlook anything. So I just wondered just if you could make any comment on that, just in terms of good design or whatever, just would be interested in your feedback.
There's 3 apartments that I think what you're referring to, Ms. McClintock, is the 3 apartments next to the alleyway down the side. The 3 windows as the living space looks out the front and all of the apartments looks out the front towards Lawrence Hill. The 3 other windows, 2 of which are bedrooms, has a separation gap of about 4 meters, I think it is, where the actual bin store is, as well, in the screen in front of you. They're looking out into another gable, but the gable is more or less 4 meters away from our gable, if that makes sense. But the living space is certainly looking out the front of the building, and that's concurred on 2 of the other apartments. The 3rd apartment is slightly more disadvantaged, but it has its own internal light well, which the boundary wall climbs to just about the height of the ground floor, about 3 meters up, and thereafter you're looking out, well, I suppose over the property to the rear, but you're 2.5 meters in off that boundary wall. That's exactly what Andrea's highlighting there. Only the newer proposal would have it much bigger. Now, what we're looking at is maybe a house of maybe more multiple occupancy buildings, and it seems to be, and Andrea can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's been a few down Lawrence Hill which seems to be accepted, perhaps more so than apartments. Apartments to me is more homely and a more presentable type of, maybe for more of the people that's working in the city. Perhaps HMSO is perhaps for people sort of maybe passing through our college and what have you. So we've looked at a mixture of that to reduce the amount of apartments, and that's where we are at the moment. We're sort of well halfway through it. So. But yes, the wall between the back of our property 32 and the adjoining one, number 5 Northland Road, there's no building there. In fact, there's a space there, and I think there's a space in the next garden. So you're looking out over 2 gardens out the back through the light well. I hope that's enough, Hilary.
Okay, any other questions? I just want to say, it was mooted there that we're going to maybe defer this. If there's going to be a proposal to defer it, could we maybe do it now rather than talk it to death and then have a deferral? So,
Chair, I'm content to propose, Chair, if you're looking for it now, that we defer and just get clarification from David if it would be, if he feels that the planning meeting at the start of February or the planning meeting at the start of March he would have the time to allow him the appropriate time frame, but I'm content to make a proposal we defer to give the agent time to get the information. And I'm easy. It's either it's the February meeting or the March meeting. That's whatever David would kind of take the burden from the agent, if that's possible, Chair. Thank you.
I'm not hanging about in this one now. If I can get it done straight after Christmas, I'll do that. The flood risk, well, I'm going to take holidays in the middle of that for them. I could aim for the 1st of February, but it might be better. If I can get it in prior to that, I will do that. Worst case, 1st of March, but I will be aiming myself for the 1st of February.
Sorry, Chair, I wonder, can I step in here?
Yeah, sure, Maura.
Yeah, I'm just mindful, Chair, there's 12 reasons for refusal, and there's some issues of principle here that aren't just technical issues. But I mean, I think that it's worth noting, you know, in 2 months, I'm not sure, you know, what changes that will incur. And I suppose I wouldn't mind if Andre stepped in there just to highlight, you know, maybe if there is a resubmission, that would be subject to a separate application. But in terms of what we've got here, I mean, we're content, obviously, if members decide to defer the application, but there's a significant amount of refusals reasons here to be overcome. Thanks.
Okay, Andre, do you want to give?
Yes, through you, Chair. I suppose the application has been in from 2019. We have assessed it and gone back to the agent previously to advise of our concerns. There are obviously objections to the proposal as well. Whenever the informal amendment was submitted by Mr. McKinlay, the officers did go back and say, look, we still have concerns here, it still doesn't go far enough. Do you know, the fact that he's showing underground, or I suppose now parking coming off an existing laneway, we don't know the ownership or the control of that laneway, if it's a right of way. We don't know whether that would satisfy technically if the cars can get in and out from that arrangement. There are still concerns with regards to the residents looking into effectively a light well or across half a metre away to a blank gable wall. There's no light or amenity for those number of apartments that are affected in that way. So it's not to say that based on the amendments that officers have previously seen in July of this year, that all issues could be overcome. And it's very difficult doing that outside of the process of allowing consultees and especially neighbours and objectors to comment on the plans or any amendments. Do you know, the option is as well, this is quite a significant change from what was initially proposed or originally proposed, or what we're dealing with here in front of us, and whether the agent wants to submit a new application. That's another option. We felt we had to bring it to members today. As I say, it's been in from 2019 and it wasn't progressing. And there are fundamental concerns and 12 reasons for refusal recommended to members. I'll just obviously it's members' decision. I'll leave it with you.
Okay, Andre. Councillor John Boyle wants to quick question.
Thanks, Chair. Well, actually, Andre's actually more or less answered my question, and my question was around whether it would be deemed appropriate that a new application was submitted, because to my mind, what David is proposing would need to be consulted again with neighbour notification, afford people the appropriate opportunities to review the revised plans. And so in the interests of those who have concerns in the neighbourhood and have submitted objections, I think then it would be only too appropriate to afford them to see the new plans, to object should they feel that they want to object, and make any other observations. I'm not being prescriptive here. I have not formed a view at this point, but it strikes me that with that number of refusal reasons, It does sound to me like there will be a demonstrable change in design going forward in February or March or whatever it would be, that it doesn't sound like the same application is going to be sitting in front of us, and so therefore it sounds to me like it needs a new application. And can Andre clarify that my view on that is likely correct?
We'll just take a question from Councillor Jackson first before Andre answers.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And along the same vein, if I do believe that there is a need for neighbourhood notification, and I think Maura had indicated that at the start of the meeting. I think, and I'm happy to second the proposal for a deferral on the basis that it would allow David they have the conversations with the applicant and make a decision whether it's appropriate to withdraw the application and proceed with a new one, because that's a decision for them. I don't think it would be helpful at this stage for us they go forward with the decision, and I don't think it makes much sense for us to debate the application for an hour and come to the same conclusion. So I'm happy to propose that we accept that we defer this for 6 months and that allows David and the applicant the space and time to consider their options. The most obvious one would be the withdrawal of the application. Thanks, Chair.
Chair, John Boyle here. I would be supportive of the proposal from Councillor Jackson, and as he outlines, considering your options and considering the options going forward would be something that I think would be wise.
Sorry, Chair, I wonder, can I come on here again?
Just one, just in that proposal, should it go ahead as is and not a new application, residents need to be consulted? Is that part of the proposal as well?
Chair, we need to be careful here about what the proposal is and the fee that's submitted and the P2, etc. And I would be concerned that if there's a major change to this application, we can't be progressing it in the same vein as the current submission. So we would have to assess that depending on what is submitted. But also, you know, it's difficult, as Andre's highlighting, for us to work for that period of time with someone progressing drawings if they're not being, you know, put in the public domain. So, you know, I think we need direction. You know, are we asking for one revised proposal here similar to what we've got, and we put that back out to consultation and then we bring it back into committee? I would be concerned at 6 months, because that sounds to me like a complete redesign and a new application, and we shouldn't really be progressing it, maybe without a withdrawal and a separate planning application. So it's just getting that direction from members, because it's a long period of time, not just a minor tweak or a minor drawing that's required to move things forward. And I'd also be concerned about the delay in the planning application. We've had it some time already with 12 reasons for refusal.
Yeah, Maura. David, do you want to clarify?
Yep, thank you. The sort of the revised scheme that we've currently looked at bore the resemblance to the original approval, which was the entrance in off the Lawrence Hill as opposed to the side alleyway. I took on board with Andrea, said I can't get clear and precise information on who actually owns the lane yet, but we were working on that through a solicitor. But no, we were going back to the original approval, which was going in the centre of the building, more or less underneath the front door, and going left and right for car parking. And at that point, there were 6 or 7 cars. So I won't be going outside the red line on the current proposal we're working on. And perhaps, like, I'll not need 6 months. I'll need a month and a half to get a presentation together and allow, if Mario at that stage feels that it's a redesign, well, then so be it. We'll withdraw and resubmit again. But at least if we can come to some agreement on it, firstly, I would appreciate that. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, members, you've heard the clarification. There's a proposal. Do you want to amend the proposal, Councillor Jackson? Or withdraw it, or are you leaving it on the floor? Because I'm going to take a vote.
I'm leaving it on the floor, Chair. Well, I know the proposals from Alderman Kerrigan. I'm happy to second the proposal. But it's I believe it's on. I'm leaving it on the floor.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, it was Councillor Kerrigan, 6 months deferral. Seconded by yourself, Councillor Jackson. Okay. Eamon, could we take a vote?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Alderman Breeslin.
For.
Thank you. Alderman Hussey. Alderman Hussey.
For.
Thank you. Alderman Kerrigan.
For, Eamon.
Thank you. Alderman McClintock.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Barr.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Boyle.
I'm a bit torn on this one at the minute. I think I'll abstain on it.
Thank you. Councillor Dobbins. Councillor Dobbins. Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Jackson.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Logue.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Maguire.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mooney. Councillor Mooney.
For, Eamon.
Thank you. Just go back. Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Dobbins. Thank you. The result of the vote is 9 for, 1 against and 1 abstention. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, committee.
Okay, thank you. This application now is the one I have declared an interest in, and Councillor Jackson is going to chair this part, and I think I have to be put into isolation somewhere.
Okay, thanks, Kieran. Can I get confirmation whenever Kieran's been put on the lobby? Thank you. Councillor Maguire needs moved onto the lobby. I think that might be Kieran going now. So our next application, and before I start, I think the term bad penny comes to mind whenever I've been asked to come back and chair this application. But it's LA11 2021 0865 F, and I'm assuming that it's Laura that's going to take us through it. Go on ahead, Laura.
Good afternoon, members. So item 9 on the agenda is an application for a dwelling and a garage slash store on a farm, and the site's approximately 70 metres northeast of 10 Helena Road, and that's in Kildare, County Tyrone, and the recommendation is to approve. So this is the site location plan submitted with the planning application. So as you can see from the red line, it's a roadside field. This is the buildings here that are located on the farm within the blue land. So this is some photos of the application site when viewed from the roadside. As you can see, the site's slightly lower than the road level. The roadside boundary there is a posted wire fence, and we have a mature boundary along here and along here to the rear as well. So this is just the policy context under which this application was assessed, which includes the Strabane Area Plan, the SPPS, PPS 21, PPS 2, PPS 3, and PPS 15, as well as the design guide. So first of all, in establishing the principle of a proposal, it's assessed under policy CTY 10, dwellings and farms. The farm business has been in existence for at least 6 years. Though it hasn't claimed payments in each of them years, information has been submitted, which officers have considered, and we're content that approves active farming over that required period in accordance with Part A of Policy CTY 10. And we've also carried out a history search of the farm holding, and we're content that no development opportunities have been sold off from the farm holding in the last 10 years in accordance with Criteria B. So the third criteria of CTY 10 is that the dwellings visually linked are sited to cluster with a group of buildings on the farm. So this is just some images of the farm buildings at present, and then just below you can see the aerial photo there with the application site outlined in red, the group of buildings on the farm, and which are just set there to the southwest of the application site, and just the arrow indicates there just the general location of where the dwellings to be located. Again, this is just some other images. So this shows the small farm group from the road, the proposed layout down here just of the proposed dwelling and the garage to the rear, and then just the field here in which the dwelling is proposed to be located. So just to summarise, we're content that the proposal complies with Criteria C as well of Policy CTY 10, and that the proposed dwelling will be sited to visually link and cluster with a group of buildings on the farm. Then just the proposals considered further under Policy CTY 13 and 14 of PPS 21. So there will be some views of the site when travelling along the roadside when you approach the site, mostly in both directions. But there is some new tree planting proposed along the eastern boundary, which officers consider will help to provide integration. Also in terms of design, it's a fairly modest dwelling, and it's an appropriate, we consider this to be an appropriate rural design, just as you can see here on the elevations. Therefore, we would be content that the proposal complies with Policy CTY 13 in terms of integration and design, and Policy CTY 14 in terms of rural character, whereby the proposed dwellings sited in a group with the farm buildings. So all our policy considerations include residential amenity, site access, any potential flood risk and natural heritage. We've carried out consultations on all of these issues. In terms of amenity, we don't have any concerns. There may be some disturbance during construction, but this will be for a limited period. DFI Roads have advised that the survey doesn't show the fence line to the east, which will need step back. However, the visibility displays are annotated on the drawings, and we've provided condition just in regard to that fence line. We don't require a drainage assessment just due to the scale and nature of the scheme, and no areas of flood risk have been identified in the site. SAS have provided advice in terms of natural heritage, but there are no water courses abutting the site, and therefore we're content in that respect. We also haven't received any representations in relation to this proposal. Just to summarise then, we're content that the proposal meets the policy provisions of the Strabane Area Plan, the SPPS, PPS 21, PPS 3, PPS 15 and PPS 2. As that proposal, proposed dwellings located on an active and established farm business and sited to cluster and visually link with the group of buildings on the farm. It's of appropriate design. It will integrate into the countryside and will not erode rural character. It will not adversely affect residential community, and it will not prejudice any road safety, materially change any flood risk or affect any designated sites or other natural heritage interests. Therefore, approval is recommended for the condition, subject to the conditions which are set out in the planning report.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. As far as I'm aware, there's no speakers on this application, so I'm going to go straight into questions, and the first one's Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. And back in that seat again, Chair. You'll not get out of it as handy. But Chair, just clarification here. If Laura could just confirm, the only reason this application has came before the committee is because there is a connection with one of the committee members, and other than that, if that had not been the case, this application would have been delegated and proposed and accepted by the committee members. Is that the case, Chair? Laura, so just a wee follow up after that, Chair.
Yes, through the chair, that's correct. This would have been a delegated approval had there not been a declaration of interest on this planning application.
Chair, thank you, Laura. Chair, on that line, Chair, as the courtesy as it would be, Chair, I'm content enough to propose it, or if someone else would propose it, I'm content enough to second it, Chair, and whatever. But unless someone else has any more questions, Chair, I'll leave it in your hands. Thank you.
Chair, I'm happy to second.
Okay, just before we move on to proposals, I'm going to bring Councillor Boyle in. John, have you a question?
I didn't actually, Christopher. I was simply going to propose it as well. It meets all the planning policies. It's good design, and I think that's sufficient. But it's already been proposed and seconded, so I'm happy.
Okay, members, we've a proposal from Alderman Kerrigan, seconded by Alderman Hussey. As I'm not hearing any objections or anybody wishing to abstain. If you wish to do so, let me know now. Members, that's unanimous, so that application has been passed. And can we now bring Councillor McGuire back into the light? Yeah, Kieran's back in again. So, Councillor McGuire, that application.
Members,
yourself.
I think that's the end of the applications. If we want to move right into agenda item 7.
Sorry, Chair, is that the DARA communication?
Can you hear me okay there?
Hearing you loud and clear, Kieran.
Yep, item 7 is Dara. Yep.
Okay, sorry, beg your pardon. I couldn't hear that.
Can everyone hear me okay, or?
I can hear you now, Chair, yeah.
No problem, Karen.
So members, this paper is to advise you of 2 recent items of correspondence we have received from the NIEA Head of Operations, Mr. Mark Hammond. The first letter dated the 8th of November provides an update in relation to the actions they're taking to improve planning consultation response times and a temporary impact of these actions. And the second letter sets out DAERA's advice to Council if Council decides to proceed to make a decision in the absence of their consultation response. So as the paper advises, they currently have a backlog of consultation responses, and we know in this council that's not a new issue. But I think recently, with an increase in cases, there's been an increase in the volume of consultations. In Derry City and Strabane District Council, we currently have 41 cases that are outstanding with NIEA's Natural Environment Team, which is quite a considerable number of cases that are being delayed. Until the 8th of November, we had, along with NIEA, been operating, which we felt was quite a successful prioritisation system, agreed through Maura as Head of Planning, which cases would go. However, that's now an issue for NIEA, as you'll see in the letter. Also, what they're flagging up is that a number of councils have been taking decisions in the absence of a response, assuming that DAERA had no objection. So basically, DAERA are now advising that, councils cannot infer that DAERA has no objections, and the councils are required to assess all natural heritage concerns under PPS2. So it's really members just advising you of that correspondence, and also copied you their website communication, which they currently have on their website, advising all stakeholders in the planning process. I am aware, members, that the Chief Executive has also responded on behalf of Council with concerns to the communication that has been issued and the impact that non-communication will have on, for example, major applications, economically sensitive and large-scale council applications, as well as a wide range of other applications that we're currently dealing with. So happy to hear your views or any discussion on it. Thanks.
Councillor Boyd, is it?
Thank you, Chair. Evidently, this is a concerning situation, something that I think we all should be rightly worried about, and that's in the sense that it makes for further delay in trying to progress applications. I'm sure you'd agree with me, Chair. And through you, Chair Suzanne, would it be possible to circulate the response that the Chief Executive did send to DAERA under his own authority, but I haven't had sight of it. I don't know if anybody else has. And then I suppose when we see that, then we can perhaps formulate a further view if we feel it's so required. But again, just to reiterate it, it's a concerning situation, and one that we certainly shouldn't be taken lightly.
Yeah, through the chair, we can get that information circulated to members, and we can discuss further as members require.
Thank you, Suzanne, and thank you, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Mooney, then Councillor Dan Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Suzanne, for the report. Suzanne, although this is really an unsatisfactory sort of situation for our council, what is the sort of anticipated delays for those outstanding cases that you have in relation to progressing them? I understand there's probably some sort of legal position on this, so if you do go ahead and fare some sort of matter in relation to any file, and then something happens down the line, would that I mean, really what I'm trying to ask, is this going to delay all these applications until you have these responses in from DAERA? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Mooney, through the chair. Yes, we have been reviewing a number of applications, both myself and the local development management team and Andre's team in the more strategic cases. I mean, I was working on one today that whereby we sent a consultation to NIA at the end of July, and we still have had no response. So there will be a delay. We are also looking at, obviously, you know, ourselves, the reasons why we consult NIA. Is it absolutely necessary to consult them? But ultimately they are the statutory nature conservation body. And for any case that we are the competent authority for carrying out the habitats regs assessment, you'll be aware of, which Shared Environmental Services advise on us. For any appropriate assessment under the HABS regs, we would be required to give NIA some notification as well. So it's holding those sorts of things up as well. But whereby we can proceed them, we are proceeding them. And at the minute we have 41. Now, if that escalates, you know, we will obviously we can update committee further on that. But hopefully we will see maybe some reconsideration of this position in the coming weeks. Because I'm aware of the concern that it's causing, not just, I mean, ourselves, but also agents and applicants who are unable to get any contact or information at all from NIA on their cases. So yes, that will delay us further.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Chair. And just picking up, I suppose, the theme of the previous speakers, I'm very concerned. 41 cases pending is significant, and when you kind of multiply that across all of the region, then you know that's hundreds of applications that are obviously sitting in the system pending a decision. I'm just, are we at the height of our means in terms of this? Because I'm reading the correspondence, it's quite clear that Mr. Hammond is making it clear that the responsibility is on council if we proceed in the absence of a DAERA consultation response under the Wildlife Act. So I think it's pretty starkly laid out in that letter that the onus is on us to do. If we aren't waiting on them, then we have to do our own, I suppose, wildlife studies or assessments, and that kind of. I'm just wondering, are we then at the height of our means that we have no option other than to wait? And I know Suzanne has already addressed the issue of whether we need to consult on all of the cases and reviewing them. But you know, for those ones that we do have to consult on, is that it? We just have to wait. There's no option. Have they given us any sort of indicative timeline? I'm presuming this is COVID related, or is it staff related, or is it? I mean, there's nothing really indicating why there's suddenly a backlog. I'm surmising that may be the case, but I don't know that that is the case. Have other resources, or is there any indication from the department that other resources are being brought in, either from other parts of the civil service or from the private sector, to kind of deal with the backlog? And then, you know, I'm aware that of one application anyway that was in the system in Derry and Strabane that's 8 months pending a decision. And I know Suzanne said she referenced an application that they went to consultation again in July, but it was, you know, I think there are ones already waiting at that stage before they actually went back to kind of try and push them for a response in July. So, you know, this is a significant impact on our processing times as a council. And I'm just wondering, do we have any leeway in terms of deleting that additional time from our processing times for applications? Because I do think that's going to have a significant impact on our stats at the year's end. So I think we should be in discussion maybe with DFI, and I'm not sure if it's DFI strategic planning in terms of the impact this is having across planning systems or all council planning systems, and whether they can bring any sort of you know, insights or pressure to bear on DAERA in terms of addressing this issue, or whether they can give us any sort of you know, a way out in terms of our processing times, because I think it's really unfair that we would be penalised as a council for something which is wholly outside our control. Thanks, Chair.
Chair, could I just come in there? Chair,
Sorry,
could I?
go ahead, Maura. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Chair, yeah, just to answer Dan's queries there, as far as I'm aware, having sat on the consultation forum for a while now in the last sort of few years, my understanding is it's a combination of both in terms of the issues is resourcing and getting experts and sufficient experts into the posts, whether it's been a delay in recruitment or other issues, I'm not sure, but there has been a concern about that for some time, but also maybe the impact of COVID as well. But you're quite right. It's not been all of a sudden. This has been something that has been raised quite a while, and not just with this consultee, but a number of consultees, which has been concerning all the heads of planning in terms of resources and their ability to respond at the speed that maybe we would prefer. Also, I think we've been given no reassurance at this stage about this change of position. We've literally received the letter with no reassurance that there's any position to negotiate. And also the concern I have is that it's potentially going to be for 16 weeks up until the end of the financial year, which is a particular concern for myself and the team. And clearly the CEO was concerned from the draft letter I've seen, that it was the impact on the stats, the same as what you've raised, Councillor Kelly, in terms of our ability to respond. And also, you're quite right, some major strategic applications, for instance, like the city cemetery, which in the past I would have had an arrangement that I would have been able to not glut the process, but get an opportunity to raise particular projects that are of concern that need to be progressed for all kinds of reasons. So I no longer have that ability to do that. And also just to highlight, I hear your suggestion regarding targets and whether or not we can stop the clock. We have asked on so many occasions in the past for this ability to be flexible, but we've never got any assistance or reassurance from DFI in order to do that. So unfortunately, there is no mechanism, but at this stage, you're quite right in your summary of that, Councillor Kelly, and that we're left with no position here but to hold and wait until some of these are responded to, because there's an expectation, given the wildlife order and various aspects of planning applications, that we can't proceed without that expert advice in terms of environmental legislation and HRAs as well. So it does put us in a very difficult position. So yeah, I would be concerned myself from a head of planning perspective also.
If I could come back in just very briefly, and if Philip is still on the call, maybe to get some clarification around, just in terms of what Maura's outlined there, whether we as a council can have we any sort of ability within our own system to kind of stop the clock without authorization from external sources like DFI, in terms of those processing times?
Chairs, you want me to take that? Chair.
Yeah, Philip, just before you answer that, the councillor code would, say that we're supposed to protect, the reputation of council, and when we're been held back by things like this here, it reflects badly on the council as a whole, and just wondering what your thoughts are on that as well.
Chair, the simple position is that I'm not aware of any mechanism for the council to take control of this. The whole thrust of the 2011 Planning Act is that it gives the department this kind of control over matters and subordinate legislation flows from that. So I'm not aware of any immediate tension, but I have to say, Chair, as well, that it's not something that I have specifically researched, and so that's very much an off-the-cuff answer.
Okay, we'll move on. There's Councillor Hussey and Councillor McClintock wants to ask a question. Councillor Hussey. Is Councillor Hussey there?
Apologies, Chair. Councillor Kelly has gone through all of the points there, and you know, essentially we are being placed in a despicable position by the department, and I totally support all that Councillor Kelly has said there. There were a couple of issues when I wanted to come in that Councillor Kelly then subsequently covered. So that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McClintock.
And I suppose it has all been covered, but I suppose it's just to add my voice and our voice to the frustration that everybody else is feeling. I think it's totally unacceptable just to get to be put in this position when we are being held between a rock and a hard place on this. And I think, I suppose there is a two-pronged approach, and one I would like to find out more from Deirdre as to why this situation has arisen, because I don't think we can put it down to COVID, because there have been delays long before COVID, and I think we need to find out now, certainly. And we don't usually get political within the planning committee, but certainly want to know why that is happening within DAERA. And I suppose the other thing is that we need to also be pursuing within DFI as to any recommendations or way forward, because at the moment, I suppose none of us can see a way forward. But I think Councillor Kelly has articulated much of what I would have said as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McClintock. You know, as was said, all all speakers have articulated the issues well. We need to probably have a plan now of what we're going to do about it. And as Councillor McClintock says, probably need to be asking questions of Deirdre. Is there any proposals or anyone, any ideas?
John here. As I said, I think it would be useful if we could see the letter, have the letter circulated that the Chief Executive forwarded to the department. And I'll be quite frank with you, I haven't got, you know, I think until we see that, then there's probably little point in putting any kind of proposal forward. Not that I have one, to be quite frank, Chair, but it's, you know, one that we could revisit, I suppose. But it is something, of course, that we would want to try and expedite as quickly as we can. But as I said, I just reiterate a very, very, very concerning position, in that the backlog would, you know, the perception would be that the backlog is in some sense the council's fault, when it would be very far from the truth.
It's just the urgency on it. Once we see the letter and maybe have some ideas, how do we wait the full council before we maybe action something from there?
But bear in mind, full council's only a couple of weeks. It's only a couple of weeks away now, anyway, Chair.
Yeah, so if we had the letter before then, we'll action something out of the full council meeting. As members happy enough?
Chair, sorry, just to come in on Councillor Boyle there, totally support John on that. You know, we are the planning committee, but it's something that impacts on every single member within council. So yes, bring it to full council.
Okay.
Chair, can I come in as well? Yeah. It's Dan here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just to concur with that. Just can this be tabled at the council meeting? And I think it will, as well as the chief executive letter, it would probably be more useful to us if we had the response to the chief executive's letter by that time. Obviously, that's a bit outside of our control, but it would be more useful if by the council meeting we had a reply from the department to the chief executive's letter in terms of formulating some sort of way or navigating a way forward. So maybe I'm proposing that we could maybe prompt the department to see if we could get a reply by the council meeting.
Okay.
Chair.
I suppose anything that comes forward can be sent to planning committee members. Would that be fair enough?
Yeah, Chair Philip here. We can arrange for the correspondence to be placed on there is a section for correspondence within the agendas for full council, and then it'll be there for all members to see. And obviously it could also then be raised and brought forward from the matters arising from the minutes of the planning committee at full council.
Okay, all agreed?
All agreed. Chair, can I come on just one last point, please?
Sure, Councillor Minnick.
Would it be helpful just to bring the full council to, maybe just to clarify, maybe a process by an audit of what outstanding files or how many files will that be up until full council, and perhaps if there was an assessment done by officers, if it wasn't too complex, that what files can be moved on and the number of files that can't be moved on without the reports from DARA. Chair, thank you.
Okay. Maura, are you happy enough with that?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, at the moment, the last time we counted, there was 41 outstanding, but we can update it. When we circulate the letter, we'll circulate the letter around members and we'll give you an update maybe on the number of cases that are held off on the basis that we don't have a consultation response. No problem.
Yeah, Maura.
Okay, thank you. Item 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12 are for information. Is there any queries, questions or any input from the officers on them, or will we take them as read?
Noted, Chair.
Great, okay. Put a proposal that we go into confidential.
Opposed.
Seconded, Chair.
Any second that was?